All right, ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me okay? Everybody hear me okay back there? All right, good. Well, I'd like to welcome you to this special event put on by the Midlothian Chamber of Commerce and also hosted by the Legislative Committee. My name is Jermaine Rodriguez, and I'm here just to host and introduce you guys to two important pieces of legislation that we're trying to vote on. First, we'll be hearing from Joe Arnold. He's the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Government Relations at Texas State Technical College. He will be speaking to us about Proposition 1 and followed by Josh McDaniel for some follow-up. We will have an open Q&A session afterwards. Depending on the time, we may take a quick break, and then we will hop into the MISD section with Propositions A, B, and C, where we will have Dr. David Belding come up and speak to us on that. With that, I'd like to go ahead and invite Joe Arnold to come to stage, and that's it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, this?
Yes.
Oh, all right. This is fancy. My name is Joe Arnold. I'm a Deputy Vice Chancellor for Texas State Technical College. I do the government relations for the college, so I interface with the legislature in Austin, and that's where I'm based with. In the back of the room is Melissa Quevedo. She's one of our team members on GR. So as a disclaimer, as a state employee, I cannot advocate for or against any ballot measure. So what I'll be doing today is just telling you the mechanics of the endowment and how it came about, and what we can do with the funds if the voters approve it. And then I'll invite Josh McDaniel up. He is one of the supporters from the business and community industry representing the realtors tonight, and he can go into his presentation about why they support Proposition 1. So Proposition 1 came about from the last legislative session, where the House and the Senate both introduced bills to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to create an endowment for TSTC. The endowment is actually in two parts. There are two funds that it creates. One is the Technical Infrastructure Fund, called the TIF. That is the investment fund. The other is the Available Workforce and Education Fund. That's the fund that TWC will draw the funds down from. It will be funded by existing dollars that are already in state coffers. They will take $850 million and send it to the comptroller. The comptroller will invest that money, and on an annual basis, they will take the proceeds that come from that. They will put a portion back to adjust for inflation. They will pay the fees that they have to pay for the investments, and then the rest of those earnings will go into the available fund, and that's what TSTC will then use for capital funding. The things that we can use that fund for, if the voters approve it, will be to buy land, to buy buildings, build buildings, renovate, build infrastructure, and buy equipment. Things we can't do with it are pay the light bill or pay a salary. We can't use any of that money for operating funds. It will only be used for capital improvements that will expand our programs. So why now, and why an endowment for TSTC? TSTC has not had an adequate funding for capital projects. Unlike a school district or a community college, TSTC as a state agency can't ask the voters for a bond measure. We can't levy a property tax as a state agency. So we don't have a regular source of income for us to expand our campuses in the locations that we're in, or to refurbish a campus, or to buy new equipment. That's why now, and that's why the legislature thought it would be a fitting time to put that on the ballot for the voters of Texas to be able to weigh in on and help alleviate the skills gap. Right now there are over 1 million technical jobs open in Texas, and that are going unfilled because there aren't enough skilled workers there to take those positions. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. Early voting starts on Monday, and then of course the general election on November 4th. and you will find it at the very top of the list. It's proposition number 1. I'm going to bring Josh McDaniel up now and hand the mic off to him, let him go through his presentation, and then we'll both be around after that to do a little Q&A and answer any questions that you might have on that. There we go.
Is that good? Is this the clicker here? Is that? Oh. Oh. Sorry. Well, while she's getting that ready, guys, I'll introduce myself. My name's Josh McDaniel. I'm with the Texas Realtors. I'm their North Texas field rep up here and cover a plethora of areas. And I'm proud to represent Texas Realtors and us be a part of this coalition with several other associations, by the way, that I would like to mention real quick. So it's the Texas Association of Home Builders. We've got the Texas Realtors, us. We've got the General Contractors of Texas, Association of Manufacturers, the Farm Bureau, Construction Association, Association of Electric Companies of Texas, the Trucking Association, and the Texas Association of Business. And so we've got a strong coalition, and so we have our website, voteforprop1.com, that I'm going to talk to you guys briefly about. Does anybody know what the voter turnout is typically for one of these November elections? It's extremely low. It's 14%. So it's imperative that you get out and vote in this and vote for Prop 1. And some of the things that we're doing here. So Prop 1 is one of 17 amendments or propositions that are going to be on the ballot in November. These are amendments to the Texas Constitution, and they're permanent. And Prop 1 specifically, of course, adds funding for the Texas State Technical College for up to $850 million. And so this is something that we see as something that's sorely needed in the state of Texas. Over 1,300 people are moving to Texas a day. And we just heard the numbers that 1 million of these jobs are unfilled and more people are coming in. So it's very important for us to have an investment into our workforce and labor force going forward in the next several years. So talk a little bit about the campaign. We've done some polling, and so some of the polling here basically is basically excuse me, I lost my place here. So basically, what does this mean? We've got a lot of work in a very short amount of time. Early voting starts Monday. We've done polling, and this is essential for determining how familiar voters are with these issues. And we've found that basically if we have the right information and the right messaging, voters tend to agree with it. So, we have social media, digital advertising. We're going to do some earned media, and some of that earned media will be in the form of maybe some letters that you can write to the editor. We can provide those drafts for you, and those will be provided on voteforprop1.com. Social media advertising, you can share any of our stuff that you see publicly. You can share. I'd encourage you to share it with your friends on Facebook, on Twitter, or X these days. So let's see here. This is some of the poll-tested messaging that we came up with, and one of the most probably effective polling messaging was kind of the second bullet, where it says, with Texas facing a serious skilled labor shortage, the investments in Prop 1 would give TSTC more capacity to train more students to enter the workforce and get good-paying jobs, especially. Enter the workforce and get good-paying jobs, especially in high-growth and high-need regions. So, in addition to that, Proposition 1 will ensure that TSTC has the long-term capital resources it needs to expand its impact and continue fueling the Texas economy. So this is some of the messaging that we did polling on and saw that it resonated with the voters. And so it's more of a education campaign, not necessarily a persuasion campaign. And a lot of times we run these polls and we see like, oh, well, we're going to have to convince them to come to our side. In this case, it seems like folks are already on our side. We just need to get the right information out there to the voters so that they understand what they're voting for. And so that's some of the messaging that you'll see in these media ads, in these mailers, on our social media, or on our website, in addition to some of those draft letters that you could come up with and send to your local newspaper. These are our digital advertising on here. So voteforprop1.com, on Twitter and Instagram, vote for Prop1TX, and then on LinkedIn and Facebook we have @voteforprop1. So I'd encourage you to go check those out. In fact, if you have your phone, I'd encourage you to pull up voteforprop1.com right now, and you can actually scroll down and see how many programs that TSTC has. And I was kind of blown away. The list just kept going and going and going. And if you know anything about these trade associations, these trade jobs, the age, kind of average age of these is going up. I saw for plumbers, it was almost 70 years old was the average age for a master plumber. So the demand is only going to go up for these jobs. It's sorely needed, and I encourage you to go check that out. So again, some of this earned media that we were talking about, we'll do pen opinion columns. We can provide you a draft of that if you'd like, sort of a template, if you will, for some of those. Distribute materials to trade associations, speak at chambers of commerce. I'd encourage you to talk to your network as well and talk to them about this website. Encourage them, again, to go vote starting Monday. Early voting starts Monday. And we are accepting donations. So you can donate at voteforprop1.com as well. So, and that's about all I have at the moment, guys. I do want to emphasize just real quick that in addition to this being an amendment and $850 million going into this, it actually is not going to be a tax increase. So you're not voting for a tax increase on this. I wanted to
Answer any questions? We have some. Oh, yes.
So you mentioned that the funds were essentially only going to be available to spend in certain areas. Will one of those areas be messaging to the community for the different programs that your campus offers? Like, hey, we got this plumbing certificate that you can come get.
We would have to use our operating funds for that. The only monies we will have access to are the interest that comes off of that and is put into the available workforce fund. Those are the funds that we would draw down. So TSTC will never have access to the $850 million. You're welcome.
Just to clarify a little bit more on that question, the legislature broke down exactly what we can spend money, that interest money on. So it's very rapid.
And since we're a technical college, we don't have a football team. We won't spend this money on a stadium. If this will go for things that directly impact the students, and it's been very well thought out at the legislature as to what you can and cannot use those monies for. There was a lot of debate on that, and I think the voters tend to agree with the box that they put us in on that. Yes, sir.
So, assuming it passes, do you have any kind of timeline on what they're going to do with the Midlothian property?
We do not. If it passes, that money will go in January to the comptroller's office. We anticipate that it will take them some time to get the funds set up. So anywhere between 15 and 18 months before we ever see the first monies that come off of that. What we intend to do is go to every one of our regions, find out what the need is, rank those, prioritize them, and then go to work. So right now we have a new campus designation in Denton County. We have no property there. We have no buildings there. That's one that's on the list. This one is on the list, as well as expansions into Comal and Guadalupe County. We have 2 buildings at the airport that we're teaching out of right now, so we don't have a real campus there, so to speak. So there are a lot of needs out there, and this will certainly, I would imagine, be at the top of the list. But over the years, yes, that money, those interest dollars that we get out will be spent here. Well, if there's nothing else, we have some materials that we're going to leave in the back. The TSTC materials, the education stuff is on this side, and I believe, Josh, you have some stuff on the right.
Yeah, we've got a one-pager over there with a lot of information and QR code of the website and everything. So,
Thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate it.
yeah.
All right, well, if you guys feel okay with it, you want to go ahead and continue on with MISD? Perfect. All right. Dr. Belding, if you wouldn't mind joining us, please.
So is this my mic?
Yes, sir.
Or how did I? Like that? No, work, okay, great. Okay, I think we're gonna get the technology set up real quick, and I'm gonna apologize to you because I won't be that short. I will move through it efficiently, but I won't be nearly that short, so. Can you tilt? Oh, this is not my. Could the screen face me?
Yes, sir.
Perfect, thanks. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. And I want to first start off by saying thank you to the Chamber and the Legislative Committee for allowing us to come out and visit with you. Just as my colleague from TSTC talked about, I will be presenting factual information about our bond election, and I look forward to answering your questions at the end of it. So just a quick overview of our school district. We have 14 campuses in our school district. We have 8 elementaries, 3 middle schools, 2 comprehensive high schools, and then 1 CTE center / alternative high school credit recovery program / disciplinary alternative education program / daycare. So that particular campus, the Mile, has a lot going on over there, a lot of programming. When we created this slide, we had 11,550 students, and we actually are up. We're at 11,575. We topped out at about 11,595 a little bit earlier this fall, but we live in a mobile society, so we've had some kids move out and things. But you can see, we're eclipsing that number where we were earlier in the year. So some accolades of our kids and our teachers real quick in this community. First off, the U.S. News and World Report, they rank high schools and elementary schools and middle schools every year. Both of our high schools have made the best high schools list for 2 years in a row. Heritage actually 3 years, and both of them improved their ranking over 24. We have 5 of our elementary schools that made the best elementary schools list, and really proud of them. You can see that's McClatchy, Irvin, Mountain Peak, Long Branch, and LaRue Miller elementary schools. And what I think that displays is a strength of our academic program pre-K through high school. So again, proud of our kids and proud of our teachers for earning those accomplishments. In addition, last school year, we were nominated for the HEB Excellence in Education Award and as one of the best school districts in the state in the large district category. And we were named one of 5 finalists for that award. A site team came out of judges, did site visits, had a roundtable conversation with members of our community, our students, some teachers, parents, and it was a great experience. We didn't quite win, but to make a finalist, as HEB said, out of all the districts in the state was a win in and of itself. And several of the judges came up to me later after that award ceremony and really encouraged us to apply again in the future. We were nominated again for this year, but if you're a finalist, you have to wait a year before you can reapply. So I have no idea who nominated us. It's just a huge compliment to be nominated. Really appreciate that. Our state assessment scores are well above the state averages in all content areas, 10 to 12% at that approaches and meets level. And so, again, proud of our kids for their achievement and all the hard work on behalf of our teachers, our parents, this community to support our schools as we continue to perform academically above the state average. Other academic achievements, and this slide, I promise I will not read it all to you, but what I'd really like to point out here is if you see the little people icon right here, what that indicates is there's a measure in the state system about being college, career, military ready. There are multiple ways for a student to earn that designation. It's through SAT scores, ACT scores, TSI, earning dual credit hours, AP scores, industry-based certifications. So there's a myriad of ways to do that. In the class of 25, 95% of our graduates earned a CCMR point and were considered by the state to be college, career, military ready, meaning that they're ready for the next step in their life. So proud of our kids for that. In addition, you can see all the other different type of academic programs and accomplishments of our students. One I like to point out is that 4 of our Destination Imagination teams went to Globals, which is a worldwide competition, and our high school team won their events. And so really, really proud of them and all that hard work, and those are parent coaches working with those teams. So that's really special. Athletically, we continue to have a lot of success, whether it's on the field, the court, in the pool, or on the mat. We had 2 of our wrestlers win state championships last year. We had one of our MHS girls soccer team went to the state tournament, so they're one of the top 4 teams in the state. You can see we've continued to have teams go really deep in the playoffs. I love, the story I get to tell about Heritage High School baseball team playing in a playoff match that morning or game in the regional semifinals, and they had to come to graduation that night. So when you're playing when school's out, that indicates really good things. One number I like to point out here is that 82 number right over there. And that is your senior year of high school, each athlete has the opportunity to earn academic all-state in their sport, meaning that they maintain a grade point average of an A all 4 years of high school as an athlete. And we had 82 of our seniors across all sports that earned academic all-state. And it's a really challenging thing to earn, but our kids have done that. So that tells me that they're doing well in their sport, but they're also taking care of their academics. Fine arts-wise, we had 4 of our students make the all-state band. If you know anything about that process, that's a very rigorous process. In addition, our theater programs are just lights out. Both of the spring musicals were nominated for the Dallas High School Musical Awards. It's similar to the Tony Awards. Both musicals were nominated for multiple nominations, and MHS actually won Outstanding Musical at that. In addition, our band programs, choir programs, our dance programs all have a great deal of success. In our visual arts, one of the neat things about that is we had a young lady from Heritage enter Congressman Elzey's district art show. She won it, so her piece of art is on display at the Capitol for a year, and it was what's special about it was a portrait of her grandfather. So that's really special, and the family got to go up to D.C. to see that unveiled and have a whole experience around that. So that's super special, and again, shows you how much talent that we have in our kids in multiple areas. So let's talk about growth in our school district real quick. So here are some images of developments that are active within the boundaries of Midlothian ISD. Approximately 1,100 new homes have been occupied in the last 12 months in our school district. And in the second quarter of 25, 309 new home starts occurred and 268 new home closings occurred. And we get this from our demographer, that information. And we get a report from him 4 times a year to remain really, keep our finger on the pulse of the growth that we're seeing. Now, all of this is happening, and a new development has just gotten kicked off, and it's Lakesong. So if you're driving north on 287, if you look on the right-hand side of the road, you'll see a bunch of green pipe and other infrastructure laying there on a hill that they just cleared a bunch of trees. And that's going to be a Lakesong development, which is all in Midlothian ISD. The part they're working on right now is in the city of Grand Prairie, but it's MISD. And in talking to those developers, they are anticipating at build-out between 5,000 and 6,000 single-family homes and about 2,500 multifamily homes within that development, all within our school district. So, while there aren't homes there now, they're developing the lots. I don't consider any development really real until that bulldozer starts moving dirt, and they're moving dirt at this point. They projected hopefully having their first resident in that neighborhood in December of 26. And we're going to keep a close eye on that, okay? And again, even though it's city of Grand Prairie, it's all in Midlothian ISD. And that's before the southern part of that development is really active. That's in the city of Midlothian, and they're still working on what that's going to look like, okay? So here's our enrollment, and these are graphs based on the last Friday of October. That's when, like in the education world, we kind of have a benchmark date. And so you can see that we have continued to grow in our school district over the past several years, adding several students. That 358 number there on the right indicates that on the first day of school this year, we had 358 more students enrolled than the first day of school in 24. Okay, so I like to compare day to day and see what that actual enrollment growth is. So that's the number. That's the number of more students that we had in the first day of school this year than last year. So this is our projection from our demographer at two different growth rates: a low growth rate and a moderate growth rate. So you can see by October, the last Friday of October in 29, at the low growth rate, we're projected to be at 12,508 students. That's just short of 1,000 more students than where we are today. At a more moderate growth rate, it would be 13,197 students. You can see if you look at that 25-year, we're between the two right now as we sit, closer to that low growth rate. So it will probably be somewhere in between that. But again, as these new developments come online, we're going to continue to keep a really watchful eye on that growth trajectory that we're experiencing. So let's talk about the bond. Back in August, the board called a $389 million, $220,000 bond election for the November 4th ballot. The proposition has actually three propositions. Proposition A is about growth and existing schools and facilities, renovation, capital improvements, and expansion for capacity. Proposition B is a career and technical education center that would replace our current CTE Center of the Mile. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And then Proposition C would be technology devices, and we're talking about student and then staff laptops, okay, student Chromebooks, student iPads, as well as teacher laptops, and to replace those. Many of those devices are out of warranty and reaching end of life, so it's a replacement cycle. And if the voters see fit to approve these three propositions, there is no expected increase to our tax rate, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. So let's talk about our history. In 2016 was the last bond election in our school district that passed, and that was a $268 million bond election, and it had two new schools. It had renovation to existing facilities. It also had addition to existing facilities. So this bond actually built Irvin Elementary, the new Irvin that replaced the old Irvin Elementary that was converted into the Mile. Okay, it also built Coleman Elementary, and it added on the Heritage High School. All right, and so it also had some maintenance, capital improvements, some technology in that bond. That bond was delivered on time and under budget. Okay, and from the 2016, so it is completed. So this just shows the overall history of bond elections in Midlothian ISD. You can go back to 1958, and the first bond election that we have on record that we could find was for $110,000, and wouldn't that be wonderful at this time? But the world is a very different place than it was in 1958, and so you can see just the history there. And then the first bond election that did not pass was in 2003, then another one passed in 2004. And the most recent bond election was in May of 23. It was just short of $416 million in three propositions, and it did not pass. So we've done a lot of reflection on that. And I arrived in October of 23, so this was just before I got here. A lot of conversations and reflection on that. And one of the things that the board challenged me when we put together a facility planning committee for this possible bond program is they wanted to give a charge to the committee. So they actually voted on this charge to that facility planning committee when we put it together. And one of the main features of this is they challenged that committee to bring back a fiscally responsible recommendation that prioritizes critical needs. Okay? And this charge was not, hey, committee, bring these projects back to us. It was more about establishing parameters for the committee to work within as they filtered information that we delivered to them. Okay? And that committee met 6 different times, starting in May through July. And every meeting we started and we reviewed that charge and reminded the group about the charge to the committee. And so these are pictures of that committee. There were a little over 80 residents made up of community leaders, business leaders, parents, grandparents. We had teachers on the committee as well as some principals. And they really represented a great cross-section of our community, which is what the little houses represent over there, is where everyone lives. So we got a cross-section of the community. And on this night, this was the last meeting where they reached consensus on what they wanted to recommend to the board. And for a project to go forward to the board from this committee, it had to have 75% support of the people on the committee. Okay? Pretty high bar. And again, that group worked really hard. They met at the Mile, was our very, very first meeting. And when I initially started with that group, I told them, I said, look, you're going to have to make choices. And a friend of mine told me years ago, you can have anything you want, you just can't have everything you want. So there are going to be some hard choices that you're going to have to make. And through the process, multiple times people would say, well, Dr. Belding, what do you want? And I said, it's not about what I want. It's about what you as the committee and representatives of this community want. It's not about what I think. I'm presenting you information. You make the determination on that recommendation. And so they worked really hard on that. Our first meeting was at the Mile. The second meeting was at Long Branch Elementary. Then we went to Frank Seal Middle School. Then we went to Heritage High School. Then we went to Dietrich Middle School for the fifth meeting. And the last meeting was at the administration building. Then we had a seventh kind of optional meeting where we met at the Transportation Center and toured that facility, loaded up on buses, went to the ag facility, toured it. Then we went to Frank Seal Middle School for a deeper dive on that facility, MHS, and then ended up at Coleman Elementary. So again, that committee got a really good feel for what our facilities are looking like and the condition of those facilities. So here are the propositions in a little more detail. So Proposition A is about growth and capacity at existing schools, renovation, capital improvements. So elementary school number 9 is in Prop A. It would be a 750 student elementary school, pre-K through 5. It will be built on property that's already owned by the district. We anticipate that or plan for it to go in the Goodland neighborhood because we don't have a campus in the northwest quadrant of the district at this time. Okay, so elementary 9. Then purchasing land. The board really wanted some money to be able to purchase future school sites because the one thing that we're not making more of is dirt. Okay, there's only so much land. So to be able to secure future school sites. And so you can see these little green dots up here are the future sites that we currently own. We own 3 elementary sites, one in Goodland, one in the northeastern quadrant of the district, and then one over here at Bridgewater in the southeastern quadrant. Then we have 2 middle school sites, one at Westside Preserve and then one over here near Heritage High School just north of Bridgewater. So those are the 5 school sites that we currently own. We own some other property near the stadium and the hospital and then over by the ag barn. It's not really great for a school site. So again, there's money in here to be able to purchase land for future school sites. Then renovations to Midlothian High School and capital improvements. When the committee toured that facility, it became a focus for them to recommend a renovation to the 600 to 800 wing at MHS that was built back in the 1970s. Those classrooms, when they were built under a different spec for square footage, a minimum square footage for the classroom versus what we have now. Those classrooms are a little over like 570 square feet. And the spec now is 700 square feet. So the committee once recommended that we renovate that area, moving classroom walls around to expand classroom sizes there as far as the square footage goes. And the health science program is in that particular wing. And so if the voters see fit to approve the CTE center, we would move the health science program over to that central location, and that would give us more room to expand that classroom size and reconfigure that area. In addition, there's some cast iron plumbing because that part of the building is 55 years old. So there's some cast iron plumbing that's in the slab and it has collapsed. So we've got some restrooms that aren't usable. So that to repair that cast iron plumbing and to redo that. And then also the renovation includes, the public library used to be at MHS. It's moved over to City Hall. So to reconfigure that high school library space to a true high school library, and then that main corridor that attaches the south end of the building with the north end of the building to widen that for ease of egress for our students during past periods and things of this nature. And then the capital improvements would be a full roof replacement at Midlothian High School. It would be remodeling the restrooms, the finishes and the fixtures in all those restrooms, replacing HVAC and lighting. And we have HVAC units that are like 2 Freons ago. I don't even know if that's a term. My TSTC friends could tell me exactly how to say that better, but that's the best way I can describe it. And so I think R22 is being phased out, where pretty soon we're not going to be able to get it. And so it's a replacement of all or most of the HVAC units at Midlothian High School. And then flooring, and also purchasing and installing some stage and audio equipment in the auditorium and in the black box theater classroom there at Midlothian High School. The next project would be Frank Sill Middle School renovations and capital improvements. And this middle school was built in 1984. I was a sophomore in college. Okay, that's how old I am. You can start doing some math and figure out my age. And you know, back in the late 70s and 80s, we really liked sunken living rooms. Y'all remember those and things? We don't build those too often anymore. Well, we have a sunken cafeteria at Frank Sill. It kind of tiers down like 3 different tiers and things of this nature. And so it's a bit of a trip hazard. So the committee recommended that we address that by leveling that off and then addressing the stage with lighting and AV equipment at that stage. And then also renovations to the theater classroom and the choir classroom over at Frank Sill. The biggest amount of the project, though, and also that entryway, it looks like an old 80s mall where the brick is, and it has some water features back in the day. Now it's holding some plants. So to really renovate that area so it's a usable instructional space and things of this nature. But the bulk of the work is about capital improvements. There's electrical switchgear in that building that, if you know anything about commercial buildings, that's really runs the entire electrical system for the campus, and it covers pretty much a whole wall in a mechanical room. And it's original to the building, and that switchgear has inline fuses, which they don't make anymore. We've hoarded some. That way, if we blow a fuse, we've got a replacement. But the committee recommended that we replace that switchgear, and it's something that they felt like was necessary. Also, to restore the roof, you know, there's some roofing needs there. It's like an 80s throwback. It's got skylights, so some of them are leaking. So to address that, and then remodeling restrooms, repairing the floor, HVAC systems, and things of this nature there at Frank Sill. And I love to walk into Frank Sill because I do feel like I'm walking back into the 80s to some degree, and I'm an 80s kid, so, you know, there you go. All right, so we have 3 sister schools, Long Branch Elementary, Mountain Peak, and Vitovsky Elementary, and those were prototype elementaries. They have basically the same floor plan, and those schools were built in the late 90s and early 2000s. If you think about 2000, that was 25 years ago. To me, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, because I remember Y2K and all that business, right? And so those buildings were built in. So this is just a capital improvements to those buildings to upgrade ADA compliance in the restrooms, the elevators, to repair the elevators. Those are all 2-story buildings to make sure that they remain functional. Replace flooring, again, AV equipment, LED lighting controls, paving, grading, and painting. Okay, so all 3 of those campuses are slated to get the same capital improvements. So this is Vitovsky. So you can see they look pretty much the same, Mountain Peak as well. And then technology infrastructure, we have 17 facilities throughout the district. So we're talking about upgrading security cameras, the storage to be able to save the video from those cameras, other safety and security to address some of those things, to upgrade there, as well as access points, switches, servers, you know, those types of technology infrastructure that the committee felt like would be recommended to be placed in this bond election as well. And the affixed interactive boards that are on walls, those display boards that we use in today's world, also to replace those. And then our transportation department, we drive a lot of miles. Last year we drove just short of 1 million miles on our buses, whether that's through routes, field trips, games, events, and things of this nature. So the committee recommended that we purchase 30 new buses. We have 12 buses that are over 13 years old, and we have 7 other buses that are just like 3 years old but already have over 50,000 miles on them. So those 30 buses would replace some of the older buses and then expand our fleet as well. Okay, so they recommended that. Now, I really like to talk about the length of the financing on a bus, because if you know much about school bonds, typically they're about 30 years. Okay, but When you purchase a bus with bonds, you do not finance that bus for 30 years. The length of the financing matches the life expectancy of the item. So a finance for a bus is a 10-year finance plan. Okay? So any of the buses, if the voters approve this, the buses that we would purchase would be financed for 10 years, not for 30. The technology devices in Prop C are on a 5-year finance plan. Okay? They're not on a 30. They're on a 5-year plan. Okay, the Ag Facility Renovation Expansion, our FFA program is a vibrant program, and the committee wanted to see additional capacity at the Ag Facility for students to be able to have their animal projects that they're showing, whether it's a state fair or other shows all throughout the state. And our students can start showing an animal as young as 3rd grade. Okay, and so when they toured that facility, they recommended that we expand capacity there, and also we do have classes that meet out there, so classroom space and storage space, as well as safety and security upgrades to that particular facility. And then, we've talked about buses, but our transportation facility, we have about 280 vehicles that we maintain, whether it's school buses, maintenance trucks, Suburbans, and trailers for all these different programs. And so the committee recommended that we expand our maintenance bays by 7,500 square feet, including digging out like a pit to be able to change fluids from underneath the vehicles and things of this nature, kind of like a quick car. And then building additional space for training of our drivers and our staff over there. We have 2 restrooms there for about 120 staff that flow through there every day. And so additional restrooms and break room space, and then paving and grading around that facility. And then finally, in Prop A, are just capital improvements at the 17 facilities throughout the home district. And that could be roofing, it could be HVAC, it could be painting, it could be flooring, HVAC systems, and things of this nature. So I really like this slide because it really lets you see what is proposed for each campus in a visual manner. Okay? And so you can see, if you look at just below your free space on, if we're playing bingo there at Midlothian High School, you can see that they have several of those boxes that they would get because of the amount of capital improvements proposed at that campus. And then you can look over at Frank Sill Middle School, same thing, okay, several of those boxes. Then you look up at Coleman Elementary, which is our newest campus. It's 3 years old. And what Coleman would receive would be some touch-ups to painting and paving around the campus. It's nothing significant, just a little bit of touch-up here or there. And so you can see this is all based on the age of the campus and where they are in the capital improvement needs, okay? So that includes like support facilities, like where our maintenance, custodial, food service, and our delivery warehouse is. Again, getting some painting and some capital improvements there, as well as the administration building. All right, so this is just a summary slide of everything that's in Prop A. It is the largest proposition in this election, and so you can just see just everything that's included there. Perfect. All right, so let's talk about Proposition B, which is a Career and Technical Education Center. So we have 840 students that bus over to the mile every day from either Heritage High School or Midlothian High School to take a CTE course that's centralized at that campus, okay? We had over 6,200 students that were enrolled in CTE courses. You heard the TSTC presentation earlier, and this is a growing area. CTE is a real growing area, not only for K-12 education, but post-secondary education as well. And, a lot of kids are going that direction because they don't necessarily walk out with the student loan debt they walk out with in college. Okay, so it's a positive pathway for them. And so this is our current enrollment earlier this fall for the different programs that we are offering right now. So like you can see at Health Science, we have 668 students enrolled in our health science programs. Okay, we could, if we had more capacity, we could enroll more students. You can see in Ag, Food, and Natural Resources, we have 744 students. Business, Marketing, and Finance, we have 1,300 students. You can look at Engineering, we have 277 students. And then cosmetology, we have 18 students. And the students that want to take cosmetology have to go over to Navarro College in Waxahachie to take that course. And we know we have more students that want to take cosmetology, but getting over there and back in their schedule is a bit of an issue, okay? And then where it says TSTC, it's the number of students that are going to the Red Oak campus. and they're taking diesel mechanics and industrial mechanics. I always get confused about that industrial program that they're in. And so we have 72 students. And again, that's a bit of a, I think we have more students that would like to go take advantage of that, but getting over there and back in their schedule is a challenge. So when the committee looked at this, and we talked about the programming, it was a focus, again, in their recommendation on adding capacity for our current programs as well as expanding with future programs. So you can see on the left is what we're offering and where we're offering right now. So you can see the ag science, business, et cetera, are at the 2 high schools. At the mile, we have culinary arts, cybersecurity, engineering, aerospace, and civil engineering, as well as entrepreneurship, law, and video game design. So if the voters approve this new CTE center, we would be moving the current programs over for that increased capacity, but then looking to add architecture and construction, looking to add automotive, aviation, cosmetology in-house. The culinary arts would go from a converted school, elementary school kitchen to a commercial kitchen that would be built to support that program. Drone technology, and so you can see the list over there. And health science, the first 2 years would stay on the 2 high schools, but the junior and senior level would move over to the CTE center. Okay? So the recommendation from the committee was to phase this out, and phase 1 would be, if approved by voters, a 125,000 square foot facility, okay, to replace the mile, which is currently 32,000 square feet. So you can see the expanded capacity just with the square footage for the programs, okay? And we would design this and build it to be added onto in the future, okay, to continue to expand. And these are just some images of spaces that other ISDs have for their CTE programs. On the top left is cosmetology. On the top right over there is health science. And you can see those spaces are built to support those programs and the learning in those programs. In the bottom row, the third one from the left is construction trades. So you can see, again, those are specialized spaces for those programs. Like automotive has to have a specialized space. So we would design and build. And when people have asked me, like, exactly what programs, we're really looking at those because those are high interest, and based on the feedback that we're getting would be workforce kinds of things for our area that we would be looking to add and to be able to offer in-house. And I've had conversations with TSTC staff, and if the Midlothian campus comes to fruition, we would work to not overlap what we're offering, although, as an ISD and as a community, we want to be able to drive what we offer to meet the needs here and not rely on outside entities to do some of that as well. All right, so Proposition C is about replacing the Chromebooks and iPads that students are using. They're out of warranty and reaching their end of life. And one of the things about technology is we have worked really hard to balance the use of technology in our instructional program and make sure the kids aren't getting too much screen time. But we also know that the use of technology in education is a reality. The kids have to take their state assessment, STAR tests, on a computer. You've got third graders that are typing essays for that state assessment in reading and math on that computer. So they need to be really comfortable and to be able to type those essays with that. And then you've got high school kids that are taking all their AP tests. They're taking their dual credit courses. They're taking SAT, ACT, TSI, all on the computer. So it's a reality, and the kids need to be really comfortable with using that device to make sure they're highly successful. All right, so let's talk school finance. This is like everybody's favorite subject. And so our district has a great legacy of school finance. We've always, for 23 years in a row, we've been at the superior rating on how we're graded by the state for finance. That 127 million number is an important number because our board has either paid off debt early or refinanced the debt to lower interest rate, and they saved our taxpayers $127 million of interest on our bonds since 2010. Okay, over the last 15 years. So that's interest that we will not have to pay as taxpayers. So when you're talking about schools, you've got 2 buckets of your tax rate and 2 buckets of your budget. The maintenance and operation is how we operate, salaries, paying our employees, buying diesel to run our buses, cleaning supplies, all of that. It comes out of the M&O side. The INS side is what bonds are paid for out of. It's called interest and sinking. And it's the money that we collect there can only be used to pay on our debt. We cannot use it for anything other than paying on our debt. And you can't like say, oh, we've got some money, let's go build something with it, or let's use it on the operations side. It's illegal to do that, okay? And one of the things when we talk to the Facility Planning Committee is our bond capacity at 41 cents is actually $464 million. That would have maxed it out to support the payments on the debt at 41 cents. The committee recommended and the board approved the election for a bond election of $389 million and $220,000, right? And so that's $75 million under our max capacity. That's why I can say with confidence that there's no expected change to the tax rate, because that 41 cents would actually support a higher bond amount than what the election is seeking. So what's a bond? Municipal bonds, they're in the market. Investors purchase those to get an interest rate return. And then that gives the district the capital to go build schools, purchase land, make other significant capital improvements and things of this nature. And so this becomes our mortgage. And like I said earlier, most bonds are financed over a 30-year term, except for when you buy buses or that you buy technology. Those shorter term items, so the financing is less. So this is a comparison of our tax rate in Midlothian ISD compared to other school districts in our area tax rate. And you can see if they're in red, they have a higher tax rate than us. If they're in gray, they have a lower tax rate than us. And so you can see that most of the districts in this area have a higher rate. Maypearl, Palmer, and Red Oak ISDs have a lower tax rate than we do. Okay? And so one of the things that our school district does is we give our taxpayers a local optional homestead exemption of 10% off the market value of their home. So the example that I like to give is if your home is worth $400,000 based on the appraisal district, that 10% is applied right at the beginning. So that's $40,000 off that market value before it's taxed. That drops it to $360,000. Then the state homestead exemptions are applied. And if Proposition 13 passes, which I would anticipate it would, that would be a $140,000 homestead exemption. So now the school taxes are taxed off of a value of $220,000. And what that does is that means the check that people are writing is significantly lower than all these districts in our area. So even though those three districts had a lower tax rate than us, the bill that people are writing is lower than our local ISD tax. And that's off of a value of $484,200, which is the average value of a home in our school district. Okay? So our tax rate has dropped 47 cents since 2016, and that's based on two things. One, the legislature has compressed the M&O rate down quite a bit, and our board has lowered the INS rate from 50 cents to 41 cents during that time. So the rate has dropped 47 cents since 2016. And again, just to emphasize, based on the outcome of this election, there is no expected change to the tax rate. If you're 65 and older, you need to freeze your ISD taxes. Okay, hopefully you submitted the form to ECAD, you've frozen that, and what that means is you freeze the amount, not the rate, not the value, but the amount of the check that you're writing. It's frozen, and it doesn't matter what happens, it will not ever go up on you. The only caveat to that is if you put in a pool or add on something to your house, then they're going to reevaluate it. So I would say if you froze your taxes, think long and hard about putting the pool in, okay? Hot tub might be a better option, I don't know. So thanks for giggling at that, I appreciate it. So again, if you haven't, or you have family that haven't submitted that form yet, please do so, because that's an important piece. So if you've frozen your school taxes and your property tax bill goes up, it's probably city, county, something along that line, okay? All right. And as TSTC talked about, there are 17 propositions on this ballot from the state, constitutional amendments. Proposition 11 and Proposition 13 deal with the homestead exemption. Proposition 11 is about the 65 and older homestead. And if it is approved by voters, that 65 and older homestead will increase from a $10,000 to a $60,000. Proposition 13 deals with the general homestead for everyone, including this over 65. And if that's approved by voters, it would go from $100,000 to $140,000. Now, that's not my election. I can speak a little more freely about that, and I would say That's a positive for everybody, and so I would anticipate both of those passing. But what this chart shows you is based on the average taxable values provided by ECAD to us, assuming Proposition 13 passes, and with our optional homestead exemption, taxpayers should expect to, on average, to save about $593 on their property taxes. Okay. So this kind of goes over Propositions 11 and 13 again, and then I like to talk about Proposition 1 because, you know, with the proposed campus in Midlothian from TSTC, if Proposition 1 does pass, that campus would be sooner than later. You know, they wouldn't give us a timeline because they really can't. There's a lot of variables there. But if it doesn't pass, then you can reverse those words. It's going to be later than sooner. Okay, so I think that's another thing for people to consider. So the actual ballot, when you walk into the voters booth, will read like this. So there will be Proposition A, Proposition B, and Proposition C, and they're all their own election. There's not like if one passes, they all pass. They all stand by themselves. And the first thing you're going to see in all caps is this is a property tax increase. Okay? And that's by state statute that it has to read exactly like that. And you may be thinking, well, hold on, David, you just said that the tax rate's not going to change. Well, if the voters see fit to approve these three propositions, the district will be issuing new debt. And even though the rate is expected to stay the same, when we issue new debt, we're going to be paying longer at that rate. Therefore, we're paying more property taxes, and it's a property tax increase. Okay? The amount or the rate is not going to change or is not expected to change, but because the length, there's where the property tax increase is. Okay? And then the rest of the ballot will read for like Prop A, the issuance of $226,455,000 of school building bonds, da-da-da-da. Okay, I'm not going to read that whole thing to you, but it's really everything I described in Prop A. Proposition B is the issuance of $157,165,000 of school building bonds for the CTE Center. Now you know why the committee voted to phase it, because to build the whole thing was well over $200 million, and so they went with a phase one to be more financially conservative. And then Prop C is the issuance of $5,600,000 of school building bonds for technology, those devices. Okay, and again, if you think we have 11,000 going on 600 students plus, 800 staff that would need those devices, that's a pretty big volume of devices. So that's the way that the ballots will read, and voters will vote on each proposition for or against that individual prop. So in review, Proposition A is about growth and renovations, capital improvements to existing schools and facilities. Proposition B is about a career and technical education center that will replace the mile. And to beat you to your question, you may say, well, what are you going to do with the mile if we build a new CTE center? Thank you for asking. Appreciate that. What we plan to do is that Alternative Credit Recovery High School program, we have 70 seats as our capacity. We want to expand the capacity of that program to give more students that opportunity for that non-traditional path to a diploma. So we would repurpose the mile to that alternative high school program and expand our DAEP seats as well over in that facility. So we would repurpose it for that. Okay. And then the Proposition C is for technology devices, and again, no expected increase to the tax rate. Now this is a timeline. It's a proposed timeline. I'm not 100% promising to deliver all these dates because this is pretty aggressive, but it does illustrate to you where our priorities are. So if the voters see fit to approve all three propositions, we would start with the design of elementary school number 9, the CTE Center, and capital improvements renovations in January, or really this winter after the first of the year. We'd also be looking at purchasing buses and that technology purchases. Now, school buses don't sit on a car lot and you go down there and you got a whole car lot full of buses and you just say, I want that one, that one, that one. They may have some in stock, but you typically have to order those and it can take months to get them in. Okay, so we would be jumping on that. And then, hopefully by January 27, we're starting to bid out the construction on Elementary School 9, the CTE Center, and those capital improvements renovations, and then starting design on the Ag Facility additions, the Transportation Facility addition and renovation. Then starting construction on those two projects in January 28, opening the new elementary school in August of 28 and the CTE Center, and then wrapping everything up in August of 29. Again, that's a really aggressive timetable, really, if anything else, it really shows you where the priorities are and where we would start first. Okay? So as I talked about, early voting starts on the 20th, ends up on Halloween. I've been encouraging everybody to go vote on Halloween, get a sticker, go trick-or-treating, and go to the high school football game that night. You can make a day of it. Okay? Also, November 4th is Election Day. Some people just really like to vote on Election Day. It's kind of a thing. So that's the actual Election Day. Early voting's here at the Conference Center and other locations throughout the county. And then we have Election Day voting at the Church of Christ, which has a new name. I don't remember. Somebody told me a second ago, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And then Midlothian Conference Center and Mountain Peak Community Church and other areas within the county. And with that, I would entertain any questions. And I have a band director voice, so I talk kind of loud, so I hope I didn't yell at you the whole time. I apologize if I was a little bit loud. No questions? Okay. I beat you to the mile question, I think. So, all right. Yes, sir.
How does this all eventually impact the maintenance and the standard maintenance operations? Because their facilities is more expensive. We know that we've had some budget issues and deficits that we've been facing.
Correct. Yeah.
Over time, how does that go through the budget?
Sure. So for those of you at home that may be watching, if you can't hear him, he's asking how would adding these facilities basically impact the M&O side of the budget. And yes, we are still running a deficit budget for this year. We've worked really hard, and I give our staff, our teachers, a ton of credit for helping us shore up those budgets, budget deficits the last 2 years. The district also, we sold some property over here by First Baptist Church, about 3 acres, that helped us balance this past school year. And so, with enrollment growth, because the state pays us on the number of students that are enrolled and attend school. So as we add students, then our state funding can go up. That's really the only way we can get additional state funding is through that kind of mechanism. Also, House Bill 2 did infuse new dollars. Now, most of it was earmarked towards teacher raises and other support staff raises. What's being implemented next year is additional special ed funding for 26-27, and we're going to watch that really closely to see how much that helps our budget overall right now. So, added enrollment will help, and there will be additional costs when we open up those schools. The state does pay you a little bit more per ADA for kids that attend a new elementary school. The first and second year, they phase it out. So that would help us as well. And so there's some helps in there, but we've got some work to do on that for sure.
So there wouldn't be a foreseen increase in the M&O tax rate?
Not just because of the bond election. Now, if we ever want to increase the M&O tax rate, we would need to go to voters and get permission to do that. That is not going to happen on a board action or anything like that. It would go to voters. Just like we did the VATRE last November, it would be a similar election. And there are those 3 golden pennies, and the state would pay us additional revenue for that increased local tax effort, but it would have to be voters approving that. So it won't be done arbitrarily. Yeah. All right, great questions. Any other questions? All right. Really appreciate the time. And if you have some questions, please go to our website, or you can hit me up in a minute. Okay? So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah. There we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, that concludes our special presentation for today. I would appreciate everybody that showed up. And as Dr. Belding said, if you have any more off-the-cuff questions, anything you want to ask Tom publicly, he is right here for us. And as I mentioned, early voting is starting soon, and Election Day is right around the corner. So we encourage all Midlothian residents to get out and vote. Thank you very much, and have a good night.